Hello, students. In part 3 of today's lesson, we'll focus on solving equations. A tool that we'll often use while solving equations is the idea of inverse operations. Addition and subtraction are inverse operations of each other. Multiplication and division are also inverse operations. When we see addition, we think subtraction. When we see division, we think multiplication. The equations that we did in the last lesson were one-step equations. Let's practice some of those now. Look at number 1. Can you think of a number that you can subtract 9 from and end up with -2? Here's how you'd show your work. Think of the equal sign as a fence. We can do anything we want on one side of the fence so long as we match it on the other. When I'm finished, I want x by itself on the left side of the fence and my answer on the right. To get x by itself, this 9 has to leave. The 9 and the x are being subtracted. What's the inverse operation to subtraction? It's addition. We'll add 9. But if I add 9 to one side of the fence, I must balance it by adding 9 to the other. Now watch how nice this is. When I combine -9 and +9, I get 0 plus x. On this side of the fence, combining -2 and +9, I get a +7. 7 is the number that if I subtract 9 from it, I end up with -2. Can you do number 2 in your head? Can you think of a number that you can add 7 to and end up with -5? Here's how to show the work. When I'm finished, I want x on the left side of the fence and my answer on the right. To get x by itself, this 7 has to leave. The 7 and the x are being added. What's the inverse to addition? Subtraction. Subtract 7 from both sides. Now when I combine +7 and -7, I get 0 plus x is x. And when I combine two negatives, adding two negatives means add them and keep the sign. -12 is the number that when I add 7 to it, I end up with -5. Now, even if you can do these in your head, I still want you to show your work. Show your work the same as I'm showing my work here. When I work problem number 3, I notice that x is on the right side of the fence. It's okay to end up with x here and your answer on the left. If I want x by itself, that 16 has to leave. Inverse of addition is subtraction. If I subtract 16 from one side, I must subtract 16 from the other. Now, +16 and -16 is 0. 0 plus x is x. And when I combine a +14 and a -16, when I combine numbers that have different signs, I subtract and take the sign off the larger one. That's exactly the way I want you to show your work. On number 4, can you find a number that you can multiply times -5 and end up with +45? Here's my fence. When I'm done, x will be on the left side of the fence and the answer will be on the right. You don't have to draw the fences in. I draw the fences in just so we can talk about the two sides of the problem. Now, in order to get x by itself, this -5 has to leave. The x and the -5 are being multiplied. What's the inverse operation to multiplication? It's division. We'll divide both sides by -5. A number divided by itself is 1. 1 times x is x. 45 divided by 5 is 9. And when I divide with one negative, my answer is negative. -9 is the number that I can multiply times -5 and end up with +45. For number 5, my goal is to get x by itself on the left side of the fence. get x by itself, this negative 7 needs to leave. The x and the negative 7 are being divided. What's the inverse operation to division? It's multiplication. I'll multiply both sides by negative 7. That way, a negative 7 in the top divided by a negative 7 in the bottom is 1, and 1 times x is x. Here, 2 times 7 is 14. But when I multiply two negatives, I get a positive answer. 14 is the number that I can divide by negative 7 and end up with negative 2. Those were all one-step equations. Your homework, though, has two-step equations, like numbers 6 and 7. Let's try number 6. I'll get my fence ready. When I'm done, I'll have x on the left side of the fence, my answer on the right. I'm looking for a number that I can multiply times 6, then subtract 1, and end up with 23. To get x by itself, both the 6 and the 1 have to leave. Since the 6 is attached to the x, we do it last. Get rid of the 1 first. What's the inverse of subtraction? Addition. Add 1 to both sides. 23 plus 1 is 24. Negative 1 plus positive 1 is 0 plus 6x. Goes there. Now to get x by itself, this 6 has to leave. The 6 and the x are being multiplied. The inverse of multiplication is division. We'll divide both sides by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1 times x is x. 24 divided by 6 is 4. There's my answer. Let's check it. If I plug a 4 in here, does this become true? If I plug a 4 in for x, 6 times 4 is 24. 24 minus 1 is 23. Perfect. Let's try number 7. We'll try to get x by itself. To get x by itself, both the 6 and the 3 have to leave. Whatever number is not touching the x, get rid of it first. The inverse of addition is subtraction. Subtract 6 from both sides. Positive 6 and negative 6 is 0 plus x over 3. If I combine or add two negative numbers, if the signs are the same, we add them and we keep the sign. I still want x by itself, which means this 3 has to leave. The x and the 3 are being divided. The inverse operation to division is multiplication. We'll multiply both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1 times x is x. 10 divided by 3 is 30. And when I multiply with one negative, my answer is negative. Let's check it. If I plug negative 30 in here, negative 30 divided by 3 is negative 10, and negative 10 plus 6 is negative 4. It works perfectly when we plug it in. The more negatives there are, the trickier these get. Let's see if we can keep all of the negatives straight in this problem. Our job, get x by itself. To get x by itself, both the 9 and the negative 3 have to leave. Get rid of the 9 first. The inverse of addition is subtraction. Positive 9 and negative 9 is 0, plus negative 3x goes there. When I add and the two numbers have the same sign, I add and I keep the sign. Now to get x by itself, this negative 3 must leave. The negative 3 and the x are being multiplied. The inverse of multiplication is division. Divide both sides by negative 3. That way a number divided by itself is 1 times x. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And when I divide with two negatives, my answer is positive. Great. Let's check this one and make sure that it works. If I plug in 5, negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. And negative 15 plus positive 9 is negative 6. Perfect. Now in number 9, when I'm finished, my x will be on the right, my answer will be on the left. To get x by itself, the 9 and the 1 both have to leave. Get rid of that 1 first. The inverse of subtraction is addition. Negative 1 plus positive 1 is 0, plus 9x goes there. When I add but have different signs, I subtract and take the sign off the larger number. Now get x by itself by getting rid of the 9. The 9 and the x are being multiplied. The inverse of multiplication is division. We'll divide both sides by 9. 9 divided by 9 is 1x. And 18 divided by 9 is 2. When you divide with one negative, your answer is negative. Circle that up. That's beautiful. Again on number 10, when we're finished, we'll have x on the right side and the answer on the left. To get x by itself, both the negative 5 and the 6 have to leave. Let's get rid of the 6 first. The inverse of subtraction is addition. We'll add 6 to both sides. Negative 6 and positive 6 is 0, plus x over negative 5. And when I add numbers that have different signs, I subtract and take the sign off the larger number. Now to get x by itself, this negative 5 must leave. The x and the negative 5 are being divided. The inverse of division, multiplication. I'll multiply both sides by negative 5. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1 times x. That goes there. Negative 5 times 2. 5 times 2 is 10. And when you multiply with one negative, your answer is negative. This is exactly how I want you to show your work on your homework. Write the equation down, show the steps, circle your final answer. That looks great. Number 11. We'll finish with our answer on the right, x on the right, and our answer on the left. First thing I'll do is get rid of that 1, where the inverse of subtraction is addition. Negative 1 and positive 1 is 0, plus 8x. And when I add numbers that have different signs, I subtract, take the sign off the larger number. Now to finish, I must get rid of this 8. The 8 and the x are being multiplied. The inverse of multiplication is division. So let's divide both sides by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1 times x. 32 divided by 8 is 4. And when you divide with one negative, your answer is negative. All right, your turn. Go work some homework. I've enjoyed working with you. See you later.